Welcome to Story of History Makers. Today we will learn the story of the man associated with the theory of relativity. Can you guess who it is? Albert Einstein, the genius physicist who changed the world with his theory of relativity and his groundbreaking way of thinking. Let us begin the story of his life and his remarkable contributions.
In a small town in Germany, a boy was born. He wasn't like the other children. He was quiet, a late talker, and seemed to live in a world of his own. His name was Albert Einstein. From a very young age, something set him apart, an insatiable curiosity. While other kids played games, young Albert was mesmerized by the unseen forces of the universe. He'd stare at a compass for hours, utterly captivated by the invisible pull that made the needle dance. Why did it always point north? This simple question wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was the first spark of a fire that would eventually illuminate the entire world. His parents worried. Was he slow? Was he different? But his mother, a talented pianist, saw the music in his mind. She encouraged his inquisitiveness, nurturing the unique way he saw the world. He was a boy who didn't just accept reality. He questioned it, he poked it, he wanted to understand its deepest secrets. He'd spend hours with his building blocks, not just stacking them, but imagining what it would be like to ride on a beam of light. This wasn't just child's play. It was the genesis of a revolution. School, however, was a different story. The rigid rote-learning environment felt like a cage to his free-roaming mind. Teachers saw him as a daydreamer, a lazy student who lacked discipline. They demanded answers, but Albert was more interested in the questions. He found the strict rules and endless memorization suffocating. The spirit of learning and creative thought are lost in strict duty, he would later recall. He often clashed with his teachers, who failed to see the brilliance simmering beneath his quiet, rebellious exterior. This struggle continued into his teenage years. He failed the entrance exam for the prestigious Zurich Polytechnic School. Not in math or physics. Of course, he excelled there, but in the general subjects. It was a setback, a moment that could have crushed his spirit. But for Einstein, failure was just another data point, another part of the experiment of life. He didn't give up. He spent the next year studying, not just to pass an exam, but to deepen his own understanding. When he finally enrolled, he wasn't just a student, he was a scientist in the making, hungry for knowledge. Yet even in higher education, he often felt like an outsider. He preferred to study the Masters of Physics on his own Kirchhoff-Helmholtz Hertz rather than attend every lecture. He had his own curriculum, driven by his own profound questions about space, time, and light. He fell in love, he played his violin, and he debated the mysteries of the cosmos with a small group of friends who called themselves the Olympia Academy. They were his intellectual sanctuary, a place where his wildest ideas were not just tolerated, but celebrated. After graduation, the world wasn't exactly waiting with open arms. He struggled to find a teaching position. The academic establishment, with its rigid hierarchies, had no place for this unconventional thinker. For 2 long years, he drifted, taking on odd tutoring jobs to make ends meet. He was a genius without a platform, a revolutionary without an army. It was a period of immense frustration and doubt. Was he destined to be a forgotten mind, a footnote in his own life story, then a lifeline? Through a friend's father, he secured a humble position as a patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland. It seemed like a dead-end job, a detour from his scientific ambitions. But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. The work was simple, requiring him to analyze the mechanics of new inventions. It occupied his mind just enough to keep him sharp, but left him with plenty of free time. And in that free time, in the quiet solitude of the patent office, his mind was finally unleashed. His desk at the patent office became the epicenter of a scientific earthquake. This was his thought laboratory. While reviewing applications for everyday gadgets, his mind was soaring through the cosmos. He wasn't just a clerk. He was a physicist in stealth mode. During the day, he was Albert Einstein, patent examiner 3rd class. But at night, and in every spare moment, he was a giant, wrestling with the fundamental principles of the universe. He filled notebooks with calculations, scribbling down equations that would rewrite the laws of physics. The year 1905 would come to be known as his Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year. At just 26 years old, working in near total isolation from the academic world, Einstein published 4 groundbreaking papers. One explained the photoelectric effect, laying the foundation for quantum theory, and eventually earning him the Nobel Prize. Another proved the existence of atoms. A third introduced his theory of special relativity, forever changing our understanding of space and time. And the fourth, it contained the most famous equation in history, E equals mc. With these 4 papers, the patent clerk from Bern single-handedly toppled centuries of scientific dogma. It was as if a lone musician practicing in a basement had composed 4 symphonies that were more brilliant than anything the world's grandest orchestras had ever produced. The scientific community was stunned. Who was this Albert Einstein? Slowly, the world began to take notice. The doors that were once slammed shut began to creak open. He was offered university positions, and finally, he could leave the patent office behind. He became a professor, first in Zurich, then Prague, and finally in Berlin, the heart of the physics world. But he was never a typical professor. His lectures were less about reciting facts and more about thinking aloud, inviting his students into his own thought process. He continued to push the boundaries, tackling his biggest challenge yet: gravity. Newton had described what gravity did, but he couldn't explain how it worked. Einstein wanted to know how asterisk. For a decade, he wrestled with the problem. It was an intellectual marathon, filled with wrong turns, dead ends, and moments of near despair. He filled countless notebooks with complex mathematics, pushing his mind to its absolute limit. He imagined the universe as a fabric, a four-dimensional sheet of space-time, and he realized that massive objects don't just pull on each other, they warp and curve this fabric. Gravity, he proposed, wasn't a force at all. It was the curvature of space-time. This was his general theory of relativity, a masterpiece of human thought. In 1919, during a solar eclipse, expeditions were sent to test his theory. If he was right, the light from distant stars would bend as it passed the massive sun. The world held its breath. When the results came in, they confirmed his predictions perfectly. The headlines were explosive. A new universe had been discovered. Albert Einstein, the former patent clerk and rebellious student, was now an international celebrity, the successor to Isaac Newton. His face, with its kind, knowing eyes and halo of unruly hair, became an icon of genius. He traveled the world, not just as a scientist, but as a philosopher and a humanitarian. He used his fame to speak out against nationalism, racism, and war. He had seen the best and worst of humanity, and he championed a world where curiosity and compassion went hand in hand. He understood that knowledge without wisdom was dangerous. The image of the elderly Einstein, with his warm smile and twinkling eyes, is the one we remember most. It's the face of a man who never lost the wonder he first felt as a boy staring at a compass. He remained endlessly curious, always questioning, always learning. He once said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." He proved that you don't need a fancy laboratory or a prestigious title to change the world. All you need is a curious mind, the courage to ask big questions, and the perseverance to follow them wherever they lead. Albert Einstein's journey is a powerful reminder that genius isn't about being perfect, it's about being persistent. It's about embracing your unique way of seeing the world, even when others don't understand. From a misunderstood boy in a small German town to the world's most celebrated scientist, his life teaches us that the greatest discoveries are often born not in the halls of power, but in the quiet corners of a curious and creative mind. His legacy isn't just in his equations. It's in the inspiration he gives to every one of us to look up at the stars and wonder. Thank you for watching. If you were inspired by this story, please like this video and subscribe for more content that celebrates the power of the human mind.